Welcome to the Horror Hangout, a podcast where film fans watch the best and worst horror movies of all time and talk about them. My name is Ben Errington, and I'm joined by co-host Mr.
Andy Conduit Turner. Hello, Ben, and indeed, hello, everybody. How are you all doing? Only you can answer, Ben.
That's all right. I just left a second for people to answer. A little bit of dead air, never hurt anybody. Yeah, we're back. It's just the two of us this week after several weeks of having lovely guests,
Yeah,
which is always
non-stop
nice.
guests all the time, and this is counter to your scheduled programming, right? We've done a little bit of a script flip this week, because we were going to do Tetsuo the Iron Man, but guest availability has made us. We're dynamic people, though. We can make change like this.
We can, and I hope that, you know, if you're someone who lets schedule rule their life, which sometimes is good to do, not great, but you know, sometimes good to do, then I apologize for throwing this spanner in the works and swapping over the episodes. But yeah, this week, what was the advertised episode for the end of the month is now The Last House on the Left episode, which you'll know. If you listen to this podcast, you'll know the title of it, you know? That's what you do.
Yeah.
Unless you just go in blind, because that's crazy.
Crazy autoplay scenario going on here. But yeah, but Tetsuo the Iron Man will return in Tetsuo the Iron Man's episode next week.
You may be listening to these podcasts like really far into the future. So the actual order of these two podcasts, the next two episodes, this one and the next, will mean nothing to you.
You could have corrected it if you'd wanted to, but I wanted to listen as the people intended.
You could have. And apologies for just wasting just a couple of minutes of your life talking about, probably not even a couple of minutes, talking about the order of the episodes.
But yeah, you've got to do this admin up top. How's your week been, Ben?
We gotta get the admin in there. My week's been all right, you know. It's not been too. I say that it's Monday. It's bloody Monday. So we're right at the top of the week.
How's Monday's go? It's been all right.
Can I also just point out for anybody watching this on YouTube, it does look like you've got a chainsaw going through your head.
Yeah, Terry Wogan's chainsawing me right now in this backdrop here.
Terry Wogan wearing a lovely mustard-coloured.
Yeah, I've coordinated with him.
Mustard beanie and a mustard turtleneck together. I think you could probably pull off a turtleneck. You got the neck for it.
Yeah, I reckon I could manage a turtleneck. I've got one, but not a mustard color. It's a black, like a French philosopher.
Are you like the milk? Are you like the milk tray man?
The milk tray man, yeah, a little bit.
The milk tray man, also known as a home invader, similar to this film, right? Okay, these films involve what? I mean, no, they were invited in vampire style. However, Milk Tray Man is a home invader. I don't care about all that romance and leaving a lovely box of chocolates for you. He is entering your home unannounced and without permission to give you a chocolatey treat. And I feel like that's disrespectful.
You're absolutely right, then. By the letter of the law, you shouldn't be doing that. What if you were lactose intolerant or a dog? That could be dangerous. However,
what if you were a dog?
You'd be ever so cross.
I think you would be
first
cross.
with an intruder, and then because as a dog, they'll love to eat a chocolate, but very poisonous for some of them. Given the choice, though, I will clarify: if I had to have one of the people break into my house, either the horrible Three Stooge murderers from this film, or the milk trayman who's going to leave some chocolates. But the old milk trayman, I'm trying to lose some weight here. Thanks for being a saboteur.
Unless he'll turn on you. Maybe the moment the advert ends on a lovely high note, a lovely box of chocolates, that's when he becomes an evil, murdering man.
Yeah, whips out a magnum and you go, oh, an ice cream. No, the gun, shoot you dead.
Not a gun, you see the caliber on this, blow your head clean off. Talking about the Three Stooges, I did get Three Stooges vibes from these Last House on the Left people. Also got Free from Hell vibes. It felt like the Rob Zombie films must have taken a huge amount of influence from something like this.
Yeah, a huge lift from it. But I mean, we'll come to some of the dissonance between the actions on screen and then the jovial sort of Smokey and the Bandit music that we get in these movies in a little bit. But
bizarre.
Yeah.
So yeah, what we're going to do is, as we've done on several, I don't know if we're doing exactly the same as we've done previously. Unfortunately, I didn't 100% confirm. However, we're mainly going to be talking about The Last House on the Left original. However, we are also going to be dipping into the remake, the 2009 remake, as we see fit, and then probably talk a little bit about it in comparison to the original at the end.
That's
So
right.
it's not like
Amityville style.
yeah, Amityville style. We did it on Amityville. We did it on My Bloody Valentine, and I think we kind of did it a bit on Firestarter as well, because there was a remake that arrived like pretty much exactly the same time as we were doing that episode. So
efficient podcasting. That's what we're all about here.
incredibly efficient. That is what we pride ourselves on.
That being said, Ben, should we roll straight into the horror news? What you got for us this week?
Bloody horror news. Got some interesting different type of news going down as well, some about films. But listen to this. James Wan and Jason Blum are in talks to merge their companies into one mega horror powerhouse. So obviously Blumhouse Productions and Wan's Atomic Monster apparently are going to form a mega house of chills and thrills over at Universal Pictures. What could they possibly call it? Atomic House, Blum Monster. Neither of those have got much ring to it.
The Blumtomic Monster House.
Much better. That's much better, Andy. See, that's why you're here, to provide that sort of fantastic
portmanteau work.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I kind of thought that these guys worked so closely together anyway that, I couldn't tell you every movie that's Atomic Monster and every movie that's Blumhouse, because I'm pretty sure James Wan's done Blumhouse stuff, right? And apparently they're already considering a sequel to next year's movie Megan, or M3gan.
We laugh at the title, but I am going to have to watch it. I'm kind of into Mithrigan.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to watch it, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to do an episode as well. I mean, I don't know how straight up horror it is, because I'm pretty sure it's got a sort of PG-13 rating, I read. So.
I'm pretty sure I already shot a message to a friend of the show, Lucy, and said you're gonna have to. I think she's the definitive diminutive killer guest.
Yeah, we've got a diminutive killer over here, right? Unfortunately, it's not the leprechaun. It's someone pretending to be an orphan. What's her name? Lena Clammer.
Yeah, it's a little robot this time.
It's a little robot. A little robot doing some weird dancing.
So yeah, they have such a lovely chat with Mithrigan herself. Part of their promotional material is they have a little AI.
Oh yeah.
If you DM her, she'll send you a few messages. I was asking her if she'd come on the show. Unfortunately, that wasn't one of the responses she was coded with. But we had a nice chat anyway.
Will you come on the show? And what did she say?
She said, "Has anyone ever been mean to you on the internet?" And I said, "You haven't been on Twitter long, have you, Mithrigan?" So loads of them me to fuck him up for you. And I was like,
"Yeah, right." She just sent you a gif of her dancing like that.
She did send a gif of her like going out
doing the creepy dancing.
Yeah.
Also, they're billing this as like an evil doll come to life. That is a robot from like some real. Oh, this is ridiculous. Like, how much is that going to cost retail? What's the RRP?
I'm looking forward to me probably getting on a contract, like adding an iPad to your phone or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, can I add a Mithrigan to my
onto your plan? Yeah. I'm looking forward to inevitable franchise synergies when we get to see. To be honest, it's the meeting of worlds. I can't wait to see Annabelle, creepy ghost doll, the natural world, the old school, versus Mithrigan, technology, robots. Who's going to win?
Can Chucky get involved in that?
Yeah,
he brings a bit of laughter to the scenario.
Oh, Chucky could have like both versions, because they could have spooky Chucky original and Mark Hamill robot Chucky. That could be like the tag. What a tag team event!
Yeah, two young lady dolls versus a pair of Chuckies.
If only there was some movie making horror powerhouse coming together that could make this kind of event happen.
These are the kind of things we want, James Wan and Jason Blum. We don't want any new franchises or anything like that, or brand new films. We want to see essentially Freddy versus Jason, featuring as many horror big hitters as possible, and just start making those movies where it's like Piranha versus Mega Shark.
Yeah, if you could, I want you to escalate all these franchises. I don't need to sit through three guns to get there. I want that to be the immediate sequel. Yeah. Just escalate it straight. Like literally do one horror movie and introduce a new slasher character. Part 2, space. It's the year 4000 now. Get on with
space. Get on with it. Get yourself into space. God.
Yeah,
but some of these franchises are too too scared about getting themselves up into space. You know?
Yeah. I've seen Gravity. Everything's worse in space. Space is the only time when the phrase "worst things happen at sea" doesn't apply, because even sailors, we're fucking out. Could be worse. Could be in space. You make the slightest mistake in space, and you're done.
You're dusted.
Yeah.
But in the sea, you might be all right for a while. Hang on to a bit of driftwood. Can't do that in space.
It's on a massive door that there's definitely enough room for 2 people on.
Exactly. Okay, next is there's a trailer for a movie called, and I'm pretty sure it's how you pronounce this. Tell me if I'm not correct. Cornish set horror film, Ennis Men, which is from director Mark Jenkins, who directed the movie Bait, which I never did see, but it kind of looked like it looked like a really old film, but like set in using really old sensibilities, but it was like a modern set film. It kind of looked a little bit like The Lighthouse, I guess, but not set in the past. But this film is set in 1973 on an uninhabited island off the British coast, where a wildlife volunteer descends into a terrifying metaphysical journey that challenges her grip on reality and pushes her into a living nightmare. From the trailer, kind of like Wicker Man meets Annihilation set in Cornwall. Looks very interesting, and it was shot in the same thing as Bait. Actually, now say it, using like a 16mm color negative camera. Oh, I think Bait was in black and white, so using like a really old camera.
Okay.
So like a 1970s clockwork camera, apparently.
Oh,
so
this sounds
gonna
brilliant.
look, yeah. So it's gonna look really old school. And yeah, there's a trailer available, so please go and watch it. But apparently, no current date's been set, but the very British nightmare will wash ashore. I like it in 2023. Love a bit of folk
I
horror.
haven't seen the trailer for that yet. I might give it a look.
Folk
Of
horror,
course.
a movie with the word men in it.
Personally, Ben, I'll be calling it the Ennismen. I don't know about you.
What did I say?
Ennismen.
Ennis men.
You got to cut
The
that E
Ennismen.
out. Efficiency,
Oh, it's
Ennismen.
Enys. Ennisman. Ennisman. Ennismen. Ennisman. Sorry. Forget what podcast I'm on sometimes.
Yeah, I'll get and watch that. That sounds good.
It does sound good, yeah. And I think it's going to make me finally go and watch Bait as well, because I kept adding it to a list of like, oh, you better watch that. You should watch that. You should watch that. And now there's another film from the
There's a
director
reason
coming
to
out.
get caught up with it. For a second, I thought you were going to say, "Give me a reason to go to Cornwall."
Give me a reason to go to Cornwall and go onto an I can't even say that word.
Uninhabited island and get into a
Uninhabited
metaphysical
island
nightmare.
and descend into a metaphysical nightmare. And all I was trying to do was volunteer for the wildlife. All right, just leave me alone. Okay, and the last, excuse me, I don't know where that came from. The last bit of news I've got is that the movie The Menu is out now in cinemas. I don't know if we've discussed this on.
I'm not sure we have, but I've seen some trailers for it. I'm dead keen.
I'm dead keen as well, yeah. But apparently it's made $15 million worldwide in its debut weekend, which is good. It's got Ralph Fiennes, Nicholas Hoult, Anya Taylor-Joy. I've seen the trailer. It looks kind of like cutting and satirical, but it's got like a little bit of a sinister edge to it. And by looking at the genres, it says comedy, thriller, horror. So there's definitely some horror in there. But yeah, I kind of don't want to know too much more about it. I want to see it kind of unfold on the big screen without hearing too much else about it. However, I think I'd recommend it just go and check out the trailer if you like the sound of it. It's about some people in a restaurant, right? And they're all having a lovely bit of dinner, but the dinner's like, oh, tiny little portions. Oh, that looks amazing. How much does that cost to make? Ralph Fiennes is like a chef who like announces every dish, and he's kind of got a little big speech that goes with it. Very, very high dining. Is that how you say it? Fine dining. Sorry, not high dining. You're not on drugs. Fine dining. But takes somewhat of a sinister turn. What could it be? Who knows? Could be anything.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't even worry.
Don't even worry.
When you get the bloody bill at the end, oh my goodness.
But for dessert, when you get a bloody bill, that's a true horror. But for dessert, you can have some Agent Delight if you want. If you're sick of all the fine dining, butterscotch flavor.
It's really basic. Yum.
Can I just have an tin of ambrosia custard, please? Cold. Did you have any more news? You had some news.
I got a couple bits for you, Ben. One, I forwarded it to you, like rumored at this stage. Got 2 bits of horror gaming news for you, actually. One of them rumors are coming, Ben. I think we willed it into existence with our talk a
Oh,
few
God.
weeks back. Apparently, there's whispers that they are working on a Dino Crisis revival. Yes, I reckon they've heard that. They've seen that video, Ben. The listeners that we get, the kind of clout we have in the industry, we're driving these things forward.
Don't tease me. Don't. If this doesn't happen, I'll be devastated. But
I
it's
hope
gonna.
it,
It's gonna, isn't it?
I hope we get, yeah, almost certainly. The other thing that I hope almost certainly happens is Ubisoft apparently have said that they have heard people loud and clear, their words, not mine, following a survey they recently sent out to their customer base asking for their feedback on what of their series they would like to see them resurrect. And overwhelming responses saying, "Here, finished Legacy of Kain, you dogs. Don't leave that
Oh,
film, don't
okay.
leave that series on a cliffhanger 20 years ago and never finish it
Oh.
if you could."
Some
Um,
people are still hanging on. They're still waiting. They want to know what's
did
going down.
I tell you what? I finished. Now, what was the last one? It was Defiance, the last one, and it ends. You go back in time, and a fella comes up and says, "Janis Aldrin must stay dead." Janis Aldrin's an original vampire, something along those lines.
Hmm.
Still hanging on this one, and then it ends on a cliffhanger, and then they never ever finished it. There was a failed MMO, which I
No
wouldn't have played
way.
anyway because online, yuck. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
disgusting.
so much lore and story that sadly they've left it a lot. Well, maybe not sadly, they've left it so long now that they may just have to start over. But I'd be here for it. I'd play more Legacy of Kain, one of my favorite series growing up.
Hmm. Maybe a remake. Do you think they do?
Yeah, hope so. Hope so. Or
Okay.
maybe just something that condenses the story of the first ones. Who knows? But
Yeah.
I'd be very much there for it. The last bit of horror news for you, Ben. Something
Mhm.
a new event emerges. Something else for us to look out for.
New
Um,
challenger.
Yeah, a new challenger, but not a challenger. They're not challenging us. They're challenging Ben. The A world in which we don't see enough new and emerging filmmakers getting their work showcased, and perhaps not enough bloody film festivals covering horror outside of London. Precious few
Hmm.
there are, Ben. Maybe not on a global scale. There's probably
You
loads in
sound you
America.
sound like you sound like Yoda then for a second. Precious few there are, Ben.
Precious few there are. um, Anyway, I heard from the good folks. I assume the good folks. I've chatted to them a tiny bit. They struck me as good folks. At
Yeah.
Gasp Horror Film Festival, they are launching next year a new festival dedicated entirely to new horror films by minority filmmakers, coming to Chapeltown Picture House, Manchester, June 17th and 18th, 2023. At the time of recording, I saw just a couple of days ago their socials were still calling out for submissions from minority filmmakers of all types. If that is you, if you're listening to my voice around the world right now, and it's quite soon after release, you're an indie horror filmmaker, have a look at it. Get in touch. We would love to
Yeah.
be talking about your movies in 2023 in Manchester. Infinitely drivable for me. I could turn up for that.
You could turn up for that tomorrow. I mean, you'd be early. You'd be incredibly early. It'd be
That'd be
embarrassing
that'd
for
be a
you.
good 8 months in advance. But yeah, but it sounds good. Always keen when we've got new up and coming festivals coming out
Mm.
there, more opportunities for us to see movies. We don't have a huge, I would say, our UK horror um, festival circuit is far from saturated, so it's very nice to see another one.
Mm. Yeah, definitely keen for that. That sounds wonderful. Be good to cover that in some way, shape, or form, wouldn't it? Great
Lovely.
news. Lovely.
But that's it for the horror
Last
news for me, anyway.
I swear I was gonna say something else then for horror news. What was I gonna say? It was on the tip of my tongue, and then I got drawn into what you were saying so much that who knows, I'll never be able to get it back. No, it's gone. I apologize. Maybe it'll come back during the duration of this episode. So I guess what we've been watching. Have you seen anything of note
I've seen a
this
few bits,
week?
Ben. Let me rattle you off a wee list. So the first one,
Mm.
I've been not watching with my eyes, but listening with my ears and absorbing with my mind. The podcast, The Witch Farm. Now, it's from the makers of excellent podcasts such as Uncanny and the Battersea Poltergeist. Old Danny
Mm.
Robbins um, got ever such a nice way about him. Good broadcaster. It's by BBC Sounds. Now, normally, I have a bit of a problem with that. I'd be like, come on, BBC. your traditional media, getting involved in my podcast space. Get out.
Yeah.
But Danny Robbins is a good egg in my book. I've always enjoyed the podcasts. I like the little asides and little bits of investigation that he does, and performed. There's dramatized bits with an excellent cast. I was listening to a bit while I was getting a heater out of my shed earlier on. That's a little bit spooky, and I was like, "Oh, bloody hell!" Put a light
Scared that
on.
something might crawl up your
Yeah.
leg.
It's I've got a couple of episodes left to run. Episodes come out on Monday. But some good podcast listening, less so much in the fiction, the combination of reporting, like the skeptics and believers having debates on what the ghost sightings could be, with some good drama in there. Good production about it. I like it a lot. Film wise, though, a more traditional what you've been watching sense. Ahead of my interview with Andy Edwards, director of the Midnight Peep Show, I watched his his premiere, his first ever debut directing feature. I watched Ibiza Undead. It was a lot of fun.
You did
A bit of silly,
lovely.
silly zombie fun in Ibiza.
With super hands as well.
Yeah, with Matt Superhands himself. Like, yeah, it's
That's
a lot
awesome.
of fun. I enjoyed that. And it's really good having watched it before I spoke to Andy, and then hearing him talk about his film influences growing up and the things that he aspired to do. You can see a lot of that kind of connective tissue into the way he makes films and from with it, and like links into the comedy side of horror as well. So that was a good laugh. That's available on Amazon Prime now. Certainly in the UK, free if you have an Amazon Prime subscription. I also got round to watching Pearl. You already saw Pearl, didn't you?
I did already see Pearl. Yes.
Very strange, wasn't it? More of a character study until the very, very end of the movie, where it becomes a horror. Yeah. Interesting though. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it was a really solid performance by Mia Goth. There were times where I got really, really drawn into her monologuing or just kind of losing her nut. Especially, when she goes on a certain audition, you kind of know which way it's going to go, and you're a little bit like, oh God, please, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I quite liked that. And Mia Goth, as you say, is absolutely stunning in it. Yeah, it's not.
Does it kind of make you want a third part? I mean, I guess it's going to be carrying on from X rather than a prequel. Initially, I was like, do I really want a prequel to X? Do I really want a sequel to X? It's kind of like I don't think it's improved it's not upped my sort of anticipation for either.
I don't know, because like I say, I think Pearl, it definitely wouldn't have worked to do it in the other direction, because I think if a horror audience went to see Pearl first without the knowledge of the character, I'm not sure it would have worked as well as it did. It's having seen X and knowing what happens with those characters that you take in what happens with it, and it probably gets away with, as I say, being more of a character study and more of about the relationships between those characters for quite a significant part of the film. I have no idea what direction they're taking with Maxine. It could again go into what happens to this character after these traumatic events of X, with only X in the middle being an absolute horror film. So I'm interested to see how it goes and what happens with it. I'll certainly be turning up to watch Maxine, but it was fun.
Interested to see how it plays out, definitely.
And then last but not least, Ben, I completed my run of the Hellraiser movies.
Oh my God, the only man to do it in the 21st century. Probably not. I'm joking. That's silly. Sorry to say that.
With Hellraisers 9 and 10. In both probably the weakest examples of the series. I mean, even Hellworld had Bishop burying people and making them hallucinate themselves to death. Hellraiser 9 is it's another detective story, but kind of already been done in the past with one of the previous entries. It was an unusual one. Actually, no, sorry. This is the problem with it. Hellraiser 9 was a completely surreal affair. Hellraiser 10 was the detective story with
Yeah.
kind of, as far as I remember now, an element of heaven involved in there as well, where there's like an angel that comes down from upper management and says, Pinhead,
An
you pack
opposite
it
to a
in?
Cenobite.
Will you pack it in? Stop mucking about with
There's
that. And
been
then
bloody 10 films of this, Pinhead. Will you just give it a rest?
he's like, don't mess with this detective, all right? He's a bit different. Like he's out of your jurisdiction. And they do get him, and they go, got him. And they go, right, that's it. You're going to be punished for that. And then Pinhead tears the angel up. Spoilers for the end of Hellraiser 10, everybody. Sorry.
God's
Um,
sake.
and after he's torn the angel up with those hooks, this kind of auditor guy who's played by the director of the movie goes, "Oh, we shouldn't have done that, boss. Not a sign of those apples, Pinhead." And Pinhead goes, "Oh, what are they going to do?" And then she basically goes, "Oh, she's the bloody angel that kicked Adam and Eve out of heaven. What if they?" And then it flashes, and they've been turned into just homeless people on the streets, taken away their Cenobite powers, and just made them
and then they're
just a
going up to
couple
people
of
telling people, I used to be a Cenobite. And people are like, yeah, of course you did, pal.
just made them a couple of lads on the street, and there's like, oh no, gutted, all the suffering. I've lost that now. He's well, no, you are homeless in America. You're probably gonna suffer a fair bit, mate. But
Who's
less
who's
chains.
who's playing Pinhead? Less chains, slightly less chains.
Some fella. I'd have to look it up. Not Doug Bradley.
Is it so? It's not Doug Bradley, but there's only one other actor who plays him, right? There's not
I think
there's
so.
not a series of
Yeah,
actors
I
every
think
time.
I think so. You know me, being all white folk look the same to me, but you know, I but
All
yeah.
those white dudes with bald heads and pins in their head look about the same to me.
To be fair, if you put, there is one of the things about Pinhead is that he has got pins in his head. He doesn't look much like what any array of actors might have looked like playing him.
Yeah, just
Just,
imagine anyone with pins in their head. Imagine Arnie pins in his head. The Rock, easier to imagine because he's got a bald head.
yeah. I don't know. I think now you put it up, especially after his sterling performance as Mr. Freeze. Maybe
Oh yeah, of
Pinhead
course.
would have been excellent.
You know, I had a lot of hell puns. And they've been
Yeah,
like hot puns instead of cold puns.
it's been very good. I'm going to try and
Burn
think.
in hell. It's not really a pun. That's just a series of words. Interesting, though.
Yeah.
Is that it? What? So
That is it.
I
Apart from
don't
films
know
du
whether
jour.
I'm,
About you.
I don't know if I'm ever going to join you in watching all of the Hellraiser movies, so we can then do a ranking. Maybe I will because I've seen the first three recently, as well as the reboot or sort of sequel. So yeah,
I will say to you,
what
don't rush into that one necessarily.
I won't. What have I seen this week? I've not seen all that much this week. I've been gaming a bit this week. But I will mention I did see Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, not horror, obviously, or horror
Wakanda
adjacent.
Forever.
Luke Wakanda Forever. And it was really good. I think it's my favorite Marvel movie of the year so far, considering we've had Doctor Strange and Thor. I think Doctor Strange was all right. Thor was probably a bit naff. So this kind of felt like a return to form for the MCU stuff, where it feels like the stakes are high. It feels like emotionally charged, and again, it feels like a movie where sure there's some laughs and there's some comedy, but it's not the be all and end all, which I think occasionally, I'm not saying all the time because I like Taika Waititi as a filmmaker, but maybe Thor: Love and Thunder felt like some of the weight of the things where it's like this character had terminal cancer and this character had his whole family murdered, but here are all the jokes. It felt a bit like I don't know how I feel about this.
Bit of
But
whiplash.
bit of whiplash, a bit of tonal whiplash going on. But I think Black Panther deals with everything really well. It obviously carries a huge burden because of Chadwick Boseman's death and the fact that they didn't recast him in MCU, which I think is the best. It's probably the best thing they could have done with it. But yeah, really good villain as well in Namor, played by Tenoch Huerta. Just feels like, like how Aquaman is like over the top. Everything's really colorful under the sea. It's a bit Power Rangers in terms of the armor and everything that everybody wears. If ever an underwater kingdom being hidden from the world for years could feel realistic,
Yeah.
it would kind of be this, because I feel like it gets a lot right, and it feels like it leans heavily into like the Mayan history as well, which is really it's just really really interesting. And often sometimes you're like, how is this happening in the MCU, but no, the huge variety of other heroes that exist aren't getting involved. At least it feels self-contained, and it kind of makes sense, the fact that it's self-contained. But some really really powerful performances from I mean, Letitia Wright's good, but also Angela Bassett and Danae Gurira. I've just remembered what my piece of horror news was by saying that. Well done, Ben. Lupita Nyong'o as well. Everyone's great, and it's just it's good. It introduces some new characters as well, which is good. I recommend it if you're a fan of the original Black Panther, and probably the best Marvel of the year, I'd say.
I still need to.
Bit of horror news I remembered. Sorry, what were you going to say then, Andy?
So you just reminded me, saying Lupita Nyong'o, I forgot to mention while I was away, I did get round to watching Little Monsters, which I thought was brilliant.
Oh yeah,
it's so good.
I love Little Monsters. That was good. It was good times, wasn't it?
We'll do an episode on Little Monsters one day because it's so good. I loved it.
Yeah, I recommend. Yeah, it's like anyone who doesn't know what Little Monsters is, it's basically Lupita Nyong'o is a teacher protecting kids during a zombie event.
Yeah, and it's very nice. Got some Taylor Swift in there. What a time!
I don't remember the Taylor Swift. It was a while ago I saw that.
Yeah, it's very good.
The other piece of horror news I remembered was that the Walking Dead show is now over. The last episode ever from that show, and then they're doing spin-offs. It aired last night. I don't really know what happened. I don't know if there was a cliffhanger. It was when you mentioned Legacy of Kain that I thought of cliffhangers. I don't want to spoil anything, but I think people seem to be happy with how it ends. I obviously haven't. It kind of does tempt me to go back and watch it, because I think I stopped maybe like season 6, maybe early season 7.
You've got further than I did. I got to the end of season 2.
I did like season 3. Season 3 was a good in the prison. It's a shame, really, isn't it? Because I think it started off so strongly. I remember finding out it was getting made, sort of counting down to a bit like The Last of Us, I guess, where it's kind of like a huge property that exists in another medium is being made into this huge budget TV show. We kind of feel spoiled, if anything, that we're getting to experience that. And I remember counting down to The Walking Dead, and that theme music is amazing. I still think that's amazing in terms of theme music, and I think the first episodes were stunning in terms of like bringing the comic book pages to life. It lost its way in season 2 a little bit, but there was a writer's strike or something when there's some episodes gone. And
it was season 2 that was the writer's strike era.
Yeah, with everything, wasn't it? Yeah. And the season 3 was good, and then it just slowly started to decline to the point where, and I felt like the same with the comic books as well. It just gets to the point where similar sort of things happen. The cast of main characters settle in a place. Things are lovely. Things are so nice. Look, she's making bread. Can't believe it. She's hanging out her washing. Oh, we're all back to normal.
And then a new baddie turns up. So first, it was like what's it called? Like the governor guy, the tankman.
Yeah.
And then it was Negan, who was the best one. And then it was the Whisperers and all those other things. And I know it's absolutely the polar opposite of something that continues a story happening. I'd have been quite satisfied if they'd gone, they just live here now and it's nice.
It's nice. What about the zombies? Dave walks a different way.
They're out there. They're out there. You ain't going to worry about them. Stay in here.
Yeah, it's all good. We got lovely big walls. Yeah, it was disappointing, but I'll probably just read about how it ended, because I'm so far. Like, I didn't even see when Rick. Well, don't want to spoil anything, but he did take a leave of absence for a while, didn't he? Whether he was dead or not, who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be interested to see how it ends. But now we've got some spin-offs. I think there's a Daryl spin-off. There's a spin-off with Negan and somebody else, Maggie and Negan. Weird. And I think there might be a Rick and Michelle. I don't even know, actually. I'm just throwing.
So basically, there's an infinite number of infinite spin-offs. So it's not so much ended as it has divested.
Yeah, that sounds like it. And then, if a certain spin-off does well, you can have a spin-off from that spin-off after 10 years.
It's like Mork and Mindy and Happy Days all over again.
Yeah, it is.
True story. That's Mork first appeared in an episode of Happy Days. I went, Robin Williams, he's funny in the program.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love it. I love that. And the only other thing I've really watched this week, apart from that, is Elvira's Haunted Hills. So obviously, after doing the Elvira episode a few weeks back, me and Charlie decided to watch Elvira's Haunted Hills. It's kind of weird because Elvira is just in 1850 and no one really explains why. It's not like she's time traveled. It's just, here's Elvira in a different story.
It's a real The Nun 2 situation.
It's an incredible The Nun 2 situation. So this is a bit slapstick. It's like classic horror tropes, a bit universal horror stuff. And it's very, very silly. But again, still kind of works for me because I genuinely think Cassandra Peterson's delivery and comedic timing is that good that I do feel like I could just watch her in any scenario. And then we've also bought the Elvira and Vincent Price comic book run, which was 5 issues. So we're gonna dig into that as well to see what hijinks they get up to.
Elvira superfan here.
Yeah, got the autobiography as well. Considering I paid no attention until probably like a year ago.
We're getting you a Cassandra Peterson cameo for your birthday.
I would like that. That sounds lovely. That's expensive now. That's £100. That's £100, isn't it? That's £100.
That's why you get it. That's why you get it for a present.
Yeah, exactly.
Not your money then.
True. That's true. Oh no, I've accidentally deleted it off my phone.
Don't do it again, please.
No, can I have another one?
You'll have the memory forever. That's all right.
Cheers. That's pretty much it in terms of what I watched. Apart from, as you already said, the movie of the week, which is a movie double bill, an original and a remake this week. I like doing the original and remake stuff. It's good to kind of watch the movie and then watch the remake immediately because then you kind of see what they've kept and what they've changed. Kind of fascinating. So yeah, the movie of the week. So we're going to lead with The Last House on the Left, which is a 1972 American exploitation horror film written, directed, and edited by Wes Craven in his directorial debut. 2 teenage girls heading to a rock concert for one's birthday. Oh, I'm assuming they mean one of the teenage girls. The way they've said it is like, because the Queen's English. 2 teenage girls heading to a rock concert for one's birthday. Tried to score marijuana in the big city. Hey, we're in the big city getting some marijuana. Although they definitely say it's Colombian, and I was like, that's cocaine. Colombians might do a little bit of marijuana as well on the side.
Yeah.
Where they are kidnapped and brutalized by a gang of psychopathic convicts. Psychopathic is the right word. And we are also going to talk about a 2009 film alongside it, which was directed by Dennis Iliadis. Great name. And it's a remake of that film, obviously. So in the original, the cast includes Sandra Peabody, Lucy Grantham, David A. Hess, Fred Lincoln, Jeremy Rain, amongst others. And the remake stars Sarah Paxton. I was confused by that. I thought it was, what's her name from Dawn of the Dead remake, but that must be a slightly different name, but similar.
Yeah.
I'll find out in a minute. Tony Goldwyn, Monica Potter, Garrett Dillahunt, killed by a tiger twice on this podcast.
Yeah.
Aaron Paul, Spencer Treat Clark, who is the kid from Unbreakable. I was like, I recognize his face. That guy's doe-eyed loser face I recognize from somewhere. Where is it? It's Unbreakable. When he telling his dad to lift more weights. Dangerous, if anything. I feel like I'm just firing loads of information at you. Sorry, Andy.
It's all right.
But,
I'm taking it.
So the original 5.9 on IMDb, the remake 6.5 on IMDb.
Oh, hello.
The original 3.0 on Letterboxd, 2.9 the remake on Letterboxd.
All the way around.
Rotten Tomatoes, the original 63% critic score, 50% audience score. The original, the remake 43% critic score, 52% audience score. So like a dip in the critics, which is surprising, I think, considering that like this was 1972, and then a slight audience score for the remake. And some choice reviews here. These are reviews of the original only. So Groove Man says, not as great as the first house on the right, but still really good.
Oh, I hope Groove Man.
Groove Man, we know where you're playing at. 3.5 stars. Review by Ian West. Bleak, upsetting, and filled with zero hope. A notorious hard watch. The 70s were underway. 4.5 stars. That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
And then Julie Norwood says, dirty, dingy exploitation flick that has cringe-inducing dialogue and acting. If the budget was any lower, they would have canned the actors and went with shadow puppets. 3 stars. I think 3 stars is still pretty high for a film that you say the acting's so bad
That you
that
could
they
have used
should.
shadow puppets. I mean, also I would argue that with the complexities of lighting a film shoot, shadow puppets would be incredibly difficult to pull off.
That's true. I mean,
In
we
an
just watched Killer.
otherwise, yeah, in an otherwise, really dynamic environment, projecting
Yeah,
shadow puppets onto not a screen but onto a real physical environment.
yeah,
Show me the filmmaker who can do that, Ben, and give him an Oscar.
that's true. Shadow puppets. If you said another type of puppet, like a little
Or
Pinocchio
marionette.
puppet, a little marionette, I maybe could have understood. But shadow puppets. We only watched Killer Clowns last week. Shadow puppets seem incredibly difficult if you're not an alien clown.
I mean, for them, it comes naturally. Obviously, it's a classic clown jape.
It sure is. Before we get into these movies, let me just say one thing. Why the hell? Well, not say one thing, but question one thing. Why is this film called Last House on the Left? I don't seem to think that there's any point where anyone says it's a last house on the left, or there's a series of houses where you would need to point out which one was the house.
Which
This
one should we
house
go to?
in
Yeah.
both of these films is like 6 miles away from anywhere, apparently. So if that house was there, you would never need to say it's the last house on the left because there is no left. There is no last.
It would just
What
be
the fuck?
that house over there.
That house over there. Which one? The last one on the left. What on earth are you talking about? There's one house over there in the middle of nowhere. It's the last one on the left, isn't it?
There's a little sign in the remake that doesn't say last house on the left. It just says like
Something about a
something
lake.
inconsequential about the house down there.
There's a house down there. Exactly. Let me have a look. So that was my only question and query about that. Also, how do you feel about this being Wes Craven's first film? Could you see any sign of another Wes Craven film? I mean, The Hills Have Eyes to a degree.
I see a lot of different Wes Craven films that would come from some of the original ideas that came in here. You've already nailed it with the way that The Hills Have Eyes. I think some of the depravity and the actions of the people that you have in there, perhaps almost those people almost more sympathetic because at least they are irradiated monster people rather than just awful humans.
Yeah.
There's elements of A Nightmare on Elm Street that you see in here as well, particularly when the Home Alone house they make at the end when they set up all the traps.
I was cracking up. I was cracking up during that moment. And to
Yeah,
be fair, I wasn't cracking up during many moments of this film because it is bleak and
yeah,
a difficult
making
watch.
those traps was a beloved bit of levity from this film, and it's not to take away from the quality of the filmmaking because I think you can see throughout this movie the skill of the immense discomfort that Wes Craven can create. I think he has a great. I mean, it'll come across in a few parts, but there's a great talent to some of the photography direction in this film. And I think it makes the unpleasant scenes of the movie all the more unpleasant because in some of the most violent scenes in the early portion of the film, when it's the victims that are having violence like portrayed upon them, it's not shot like a movie. It's shot
No.
like it's not a found footage movie, but it is shot like someone is in amongst it. They aren't framed shots. They are not designed for you to get a cinematic view of the action. It is purposefully like you're in the melee and the mess of these bodies as they are as they're going through. And far from it being like breaking out and you feel like, oh, this makes it not so well shot. I can't really see what's going on. You're kind of almost relieved that you can't see everything, and it makes it feel all the grittier and realer for it. So there's phenomenal, I think, skill as a filmmaker there. But if the purpose of this film is to make you feel uncomfortable, I think he succeeds in buckets. How about you?
Yeah. it's definitely got snuff film vibes, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen either of these films before. Don't know why. Just one of those cinematic blind spots, isn't it? I'm reading here that it was based on the 1960 Swedish film, The Virgin Spring, which was again sort of like a rape revenge film. So I didn't really know it was like that. And I guess films like I Spit on Your Grave and stuff like that, of which I have seen, similar to that in a way. But yeah, sort of bleak and like no hope, because you kind of, even though rape revenge films are difficult to watch, and it often promises something, which is that the person who has the crime committed upon them does still get some form of revenge in the end, violence. But with this film, it isn't the people who have those crimes committed upon them who get the revenge. They are just killed, and obviously they just happen to stumble upon some relatives of one of the victims, and then that's where the revenge starts. So in a way, it's like, even though this is 1972, it feels like not a very standard exploitation rape revenge film in that sense, because it feels like there is a very basic structure to those sort of films, and this one kind of took you out of that. And I kind of appreciated the remake a bit more, because even though it still kind of takes that same stance and same standpoint and progresses with the acts of revenge being committed by someone who hasn't had those events, but there's still like a little sliver of hope, isn't there? Which is that these people can go on and live a normal life after this terrible event, whereas the original is like, it's just horrific for everyone involved.
Yeah,
essentially.
the remake, and I guess we'll come to it in more detail as we get towards the sharp end of the film towards the end. But I found it really interesting the things they kept in, with 2000 sensibilities versus the thing they chopped out. The things that they cut out and the things they changed about it were not necessarily for good or ill in either case, but interesting in what they chose to change and what they chose to keep very much the same.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But yeah, I guess, again, spoilers for these movies. We are going to go through them in detail. Neither of them are particularly new. Some of them are very old. But we'll go through this beat by beat. As Ben
What
said,
happens in the 1972 Last House on the Left?
you've only ruined it for us.
Bloody hell!
I was getting around to that soon.
Let's get around to that.
So we begin with, for like the first 30 seconds of this movie, it's one of the most wholesome horror movies I've seen. It suddenly takes a nosedive very quick, but it begins with like the postman pulling up, going, "Blimmin' hell!" Like he opens the dog to bring this. That's like an episode of Postman Pat.
It's like an episode of Postman
Posty
Pat.
opens the door. Little dog, lovely Cassie, the dog, like runs into his car and gives him a little cuddle. It's like, "Oh, good morning. I tell you what, got some lovely birthday cards here. Anyone would think she was the only girl that ever turned 17
Yeah.
in the world."
Oh, see, that's another thing that's like really grim about this, is the fact that she's 17. I don't know if in the remake does it say how old the character
I think she
Mary
says
is?
that she's 17 as
She's
well.
17 as well.
I think it says, yeah. I think it
just
comes
just a point I want to make before I forget it. The thing I found interesting was that the prolonged like torture slash horror kidnapping scene for the original is like the first 2/3 of the movie, and the final third is like revenge. And in the remake, it's like the first third of the movie is the torture and the kidnapping. The final 2/3 are like the revenge.
Yeah, there's more of a time to it. Like I noticed in this one, it maybe not even be a third, Ben. I noticed that the plan kicks off on this one. Like they maybe start putting it together a few minutes before, but there's been no revenge action until there is below 20 minutes of the movie left.
Yeah. In which one, sir?
It's about the first one. There's about the last 17 minutes are actually things that are happening.
Yeah. I think you're right.
I looked at the timing, and there's no credits really at the back end of the first one, but yeah, it's really concentrated in those last moments. It's a bit more extended in the remake. They give some more,
and obviously the difference in the soundtracks as well is that the original soundtrack is very upbeat, kind of melancholic, not melancholic. What
The
word am I
opposite,
thinking of?
but he joke like it is. I think I said it.
Jovial, yes.
It's like smoking. It's like Smokey and the Bandit. Like
It's very, very strange. And
and
some
like
of them feel like really odd, like little keyboard runs and stuff that don't do 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 do
yeah,
do do.
it's like you what it is. It's very much either Smokey and the Bandit or like a BBC produced like drama, mostly featuring
Yeah,
kids, and they're saving an old house from property developers with their friends who is a ghost. It's a
yeah.
true story. It's a real film.
I
Um,
did.
yeah,
What film is it?
I think it's called something ridiculous like A Ghost of a Chance, and some kids team
Oh
up
wow,
with some like gentleman ghosts to stop some
sounds great.
developers.
There's
But
something
it feels like
incredible,
that. It's very strange.
and the remake soundtrack has got something like incredibly modern about the soundtrack. It's got almost like an elevated horror sound to it in the soundtrack sometimes, like those constant growing like gongs.
Yeah,
I think we've heard that in stuff like folk horror movies, but also like Hereditary. And there's loads of that, which is really good at like building the tension.
yeah.
I was impressed with the soundtrack.
Some really odd, some odd choices in the original for soundtrack. I mean, it works for a like almost a dissonance between the action on screen and then how these characters are sometimes portrayed. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, agree with you in the remake. I think it was very effectively done.
Hmm.
So we begin after that little scene there. Story beat wise, you know, it kind of takes a sleazy and brings in that exploitation turn almost straight away. So we've had the lovely scene where it's like, oh, only think, you know, anyone thinks she's the only 17-year-old girl in the world. And before that guy's even off camera, it sort of loses it a little bit. It's like, oh, bloody hell, I'd give her one though. It's Pervin talking to the dog. It's like, oh, bloody hell. And then it
Is
goes,
that what he says?
yeah. And then, yeah. And
He
then,
says that to the dog.
yeah.
And the dog
then,
goes, talking to the wrong guy, mate.
yeah, as a dog, I'm not interested in this type of thing. But
Weird.
it then goes immediately to like a shower scene, getting
Yeah.
she's getting ready to go out on the town.
Yeah. And then when she's dressed to go out in the town, her dad says what can only be considered an incredibly inappropriate thing about her nipples being on the show.
You're not gonna wear a bra then, are you? There's no one wears any bra. Less dad, but granddad. No one wears bra for granddad.
No one likes support anymore. It's because bras in the 70s probably just big, like empty.
Just coat hangers with a bit of material. They hadn't invented actual support then.
No. But yeah, he said you can see your nipple. I think that's kind of it. It's kind of like the music kind of has this like jovial, sort of like family friendly sort of sound to it. But then immediately you're kind of by the things that you see on screen and hear on screen are the complete opposite. Even this is supposed to be like a good family environment. And again, are we supposed to think, oh, it's 1972, people probably were saying things like this? It's like, yeah, probably were, but doesn't make him any less weird.
Yeah, it is so strange because they have some lovely like family banter almost. It's like the dad says to his 17 years old today daughter, "See your nipples through your top," and she goes, oh, "Come on, Dad, don't be such a bloody prude. Mom used to whack her tits up like torpedoes back in the 60s. I beg your pardon. Yeah, it's true, though, isn't it?"
Don't
like,
be such a prude. It's like I'll be honest, I'm being the opposite of a prude. It sounds like you're being a dirty old pervert to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really strange. This is their family banter. And to be fair, doesn't come down and say, no, you're really not going out in a see-through top. You're gonna have to whack a bra on. He just gives us a mild ribbon about it.
Everyone's gonna be able to see your nipples when you're away.
He goes, "Oh, aren't you The dad then immediately shows loads of knowledge about like, oh, are you going to go and see in the town? She's going to a concert on her birthday to see a band called Bloodlust. And for a man that is
It's a good band name, isn't it?
seems to be objecting to it, knows a lot about their set list and what they aren't they the people that bit the heads off chickens on stage? Oh, come on, they only did that once.
Come on, they did that 3 times, and they've done over 100 concerts, so 3 times is nothing really, 3%.
I wonder who knows about it because he's not looking at hashtag bit the heads off chickens. And I'm not sure that's the type of thing that makes it into the paper.
Word of mouth.
That rip roaring show from Bloodlust last night.
Yeah, word of
Four and a
mouth.
half, 4.5 stars just in the review column, in the culture
And they
section.
bit the head off a chicken, which was interesting. Very nice. Wait, was this pre Ozzy Osbourne biting the head off a bat? It would have been pre.
72, so it's got
It
to be
would have been
close,
pre.
right?
So I'm pretty sure he did that. He did that solo. So he didn't go solo until like I want to say early 80s.
Maybe
I might be
Ozzy
wrong.
was a big
Maybe late
Bloodlust
'70s.
fan.
Yeah, he was.
But
Uh,
they come up with it, and then I like the joke here with it. No, who's the is it? No, Sadie's the bad lady. What's the friend's name?
the friend's name
Estelle.
is. I'm not sure actually. What is it? Estelle. So
Um,
you've got Mary Collingwood. Sorry, Estelle is the mum. Dr. John is the dad. And then is it Phyllis?
Phyllis. It could well be Phyllis. You don't really hear their names very much, but I like the. Who are you going to the concert with? Oh, Phyllis. And she goes, oh, they think she's a bit of the kid from the wrong side of the tracks from New York City, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, what business are your parents in? She says, oh, the iron and steel business. He goes, oh, it's unusual to see those things together. Don't think it is. I think iron and steel probably go quite well as businesses. And
Yeah.
then, but
Iron. And
unfortunately,
what do you do alongside that? Bit of steel.
yeah,
That's great. That's some chalk and cheese. That's some chalk and cheese.
fortunately, though, it's just a setup for an excellent joke. So yeah, mom does the ironing, dad does the stealing. Way implying that her parents are actually a housewife and a burglar.
Yeah. I
But
like
yeah,
it.
it was a good little. And then they go, and she's got a little nice bottle of Lambrini in the river waiting for him.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, cooling in the river.
yeah, and they
Nice.
go for a bit. They go for a bit
Have
of
you
a
ever
booze up.
done anything similar to that? I think I hid a bottle of Mad Dog 2020 in a bush once,
We
kiwi
used to
flavor.
have kiwi flavor, ever so fancy, exotic flavors.
I
We used
know.
to go down Kang's family supermarket on a Friday evening. Despite being 14, one of our friends had a fantastic growth spurt and had a beard and was like 6'2" when we were
Classic.
that old. So
You always need a friend like that.
he'd nip in, old Rich would nip in, and he'd get us each um, bottle of Frosty Jack, get a litre of cider for £1 there,
Lovely.
and a couple of cans of Foster's. That's right. It's a classy store that sells Foster's cans individually. You drink
Lovely.
yourself half your cider. You refill it with your lager. Lovely bottle of snake bite for you, and then we'd go round the castle grounds, have a lovely time.
Oh, sounds great.
Oh,
Sounds like a what a time to be alive, eh?
what a time! What a time to be alive
No
and
worries.
drinking in the mid to late 90s.
Mm.
What a time to be alive. There was one time got quite badly beaten up by some bigger boys around there. I was all right, I escaped,
Yes.
but it got a bit rough. Took a couple of nights off.
Oh God.
But yeah, other than that, it
Well, at
was
least you didn't get last house on the left,
no, I
did?
didn't get Last House on the Left at least, thank goodness.
Mm.
But until the Last House on the Lefting begins, and I feel like we'll probably rattle over some of that a little bit more quickly than we do some of the other bits. But
Yeah.
we're having a lovely time.
One plot point. Sorry, just wanted to say, her parents, Estelle and John, do give her a necklace before she leaves with a peace symbol on it as a birthday present, which is obviously key to
Yeah,
something that
they
happens
give
in
her
the plot.
they give her a distinctive
But yeah.
necklace, and they lend her the car. So
It says they
she's
head into the city. Like, what city are they? Are they
well,
the Big Apple?
the big apple. But before they do that, they do hang out and have a little bottle of Lambrini by the river, and
Yeah.
they do some classic chat. I mean, never been a teenage girl, Ben. I don't know what they talk about, but might feel a little bit contrived where Mary goes, tell you what, my boobs have come in recently, haven't they? Aren't these great?
Yeah, she didn't you know? She went. Didn't you notice from last summer? She's like, I didn't know you last summer. Said, well, let me tell you, they're absolutely huge these days.
Yeah, I've done that, so sorted that out. What do you reckon? And this what do you reckon? Sex with chicken head biting band Bloodlust would be like? And she says, I think it'd be ever so nice, actually. Ever
Are,
so
are going to
ever
be
so
top
nice.
quality. If they bite chickens off, if they bite their heads off chickens, think about what else they could do with their teeth. I was about to say undo a bra, but no need for bras in this scenario.
No, it wouldn't need that kind of admin. But
No.
they talk a lot. She talks a lot about how it's quite romanticized, which I guess is deliberate for what we experience a little bit later. But
Mm.
I guess it's meant to show some naivety of the character that, you know, thinks it would be quite a romantic and nice situation to make it, as she puts it, with I don't want to call them a death metal band inappropriately. Ben, do you reckon what subgenre of rock do you think Bloodlust would play?
Well, it's only 1972, and I mean the birth of heavy metal was really Black Sabbath, so death metal wouldn't have been a thing. Maybe it was something else noisy. Uh, I don't even reckon a metal band, just like a rock band. Bloodlust probably just makes them sound scarier than they are, and biting off the heads of chickens as well. But no more than a Jimi Hendrix.
No more so than you, Jimi Hendrix.
No more so than you, Jimi Hendrix playing guitar with his teeth and setting fire to the old Fender Stratocaster.
Yeah, might be a Christian group. Who knows?
Might be a Christian band, yeah, and maybe the act of biting the head off a chicken is in its way.
They very quietly say between power chords, "This is an offering to you, O Lord."
Oh Lord,
Amen.
Yeah. Satanists, maybe Satanists knocking about them, wouldn't they?
Yeah,
but
probably.
one thing I find really interesting about this film is that the year it takes place, and I've read some stuff about it as well. That like this, the films like this really do signal the end of the '60s, and the free love and the hippie environment and the all that stuff, which was not incredibly realistic because things like the Manson family existed, Vietnam yet? My timeline.
Not up to my Vietnamese War history timeline.
Yeah. So it was now. It's from like 55 onwards. So, but the fact that they were like veterans or people coming back from Vietnam War for a certain generation, they were forever tainted and forever affected by what they saw in that war. The fact that things like the Manson family happened, and then films like this were kind of really leaning into it and saying, look, the '60s, that whole ideology of all that lovely stuff, it doesn't exist, never did exist. Here's the nasty side of life that we need to all come to terms with.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
a generation of absolutely fucked up people that we see in the end of the baddies in this movie.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, because there's drug addiction in this film as well. Like the kid Junior is a heroin addict. And yeah, and just like that this is the thing, like the free love, the free sex, the promiscuous side of things really shown from the other end of the spectrum, where it's like it's been taken one step too far, where now it's without consent and now it's violent, and now it's
this is probably the first entry point that we get here, because as they come away from their time at the riverbank and they head into the town, we're kind of introduced to our antagonists of the movie via news radio report. We're talking about a violent escape has happened from prison, and we hear about like the main characters. So there is Krug Stillo.
Krug Stillo. Hey, it's Krug Stillo over here.
Is he the leader? Or is he like the tough guy? Is Krug?
And then the other guy with the like grey guy who always wears a suit and always carries a little switchblade, like a little motherfucker, is Fred Podowski, I think.
Fred Podowski, and then you have Junior Stillo, who is the son of.
Yeah, what are we gonna call this son? Or I could just call him Junior. Sounds fair.
Call him Junior. Well, I guess if he's Junior, does that also mean his name is also Krug?
Possibly.
Krug Stillo too.
Krug Stillo too. Junior Senior.
So yeah, and this is one of the interesting changes we get from. So Junior in this one is a heroin addict, very deliberately addicted to drugs by his father as a method, and they say on the radio as a method of controlling him, and keeping him kind of on side with their criminal activities, along with these two thugs. First interesting change that you see in the remake, that we see that Junior is a troubled character, but isn't overtly a heroin addict. We see him smoke some weed earlier on, but he's a far less willing participant.
And it seems like Junior in the original is like purposely leading them and into a scenario where they're going to end up being kidnapped and tortured. Whereas in the remake, he just hangs out with him, smokes some weed, and then
The bad
his family
they
tend to
turn up
come back
they
and get
turn up
involved.
earlier than he expected them to, right? So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and
Whereas
his name's Justin in the remake as well. So clearly, we've gone Junior. Now let's give him his own name, Justin.
yeah,
Justin.
so they've changed a few things around with that one, primarily his addiction to drugs and how much involvement he has, and his ultimate fate is very different in the across the movies as well, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting portrayal, and as we learn in a few minutes, he has very different career aspirations. He doesn't really want to be a heroin addicted criminal. He would prefer to be a frog.
I mean, to be fair, initially when he said I want to be a frog, I was a bit like, that sounds ridiculous. That sounds stupid. What do you think? Live in a fairy tale? But when he described what it would be like to be a frog, I was like, that sounds right, actually. He'd have his own lily pad.
Yeah, he would have his own lily pad, and as we quickly learn, he's very good at ribbit noises and doing like frog eyes.
Yeah. I reckon he did that at some point on set, and Wes Craven said,
Say you want to be a frog. You're a frog boy.
We got to guess. He said, listen. He said, listen, we got to get this into we got to get this into the film somehow. All right, do you reckon you could be a frog? In the next scene, I'm going to rewrite the script so that you do this ribbit. And he's gone, yeah, fair shame.
Yeah, I'm a good job at ribbits. And then we hear about the last baddie, a woman who's described as animal-like on several occasions.
Why is she described as animal-like?
Kicked like an attack dog to death as they were escaping prison.
Jesus, what kind of shoes was she wearing? Steel toe caps.
Yeah.
I was kind of confused by this character. So mainly, it wasn't the fact that she's a psychopath, clearly like sexually free, but also involved in this her a feminist as well, you would say, because she does call the men chauvinist pigs, and even though she is kind of like offering herself to all of them in this kind of like, what would you say, like poly four-way? No, it's more like a three-way relationship, and it's
like
kind of going on.
The little boy just wants to be a frog.
Yeah, he just wants to be a frog. You got no interest in that, even though she does put his face in her boobs and her wet, soapy boobs at one point, and he goes,
more interested.
I just want to be a frog.
Your frogs stay on the lily pad, mate. I don't get in.
Ugh. But despite all of that, I was mainly confused with Sadie. It was her ever-changing hair. It was changing so much. It was almost like a Scanner Darkly with Keanu Reeves, where just constantly changing. At one point, it was like a perfect afro. She's a white lady, which I thought was impressive. I mean, it is 1972. Then it was just a little bit voluminous, tousled. Later on, it's
Cyndi Lauper. She's all
later on, it's like a bob. Like when they're in the house at the end, it's like a bob. I don't think she gets rained on, and it's like a bob. I was just confused. I was confused and fascinated. There was a man who was follically challenged. I was just kind of jealous, but also like admired what was going down. But screw continuity issues for Wes Craven. He was just like, literally, have your hair however you want, however you fancy it that day. I've got some pigtails going on here. Yeah, get involved.
Whack 'em in. That was good.
Whack 'em in.
We see these things. We see these characters, hear them introduced on the radio. Then we very quickly see them in this house where they have the frog conversation, and then
it's like a crack den or something, isn't it? What is it? Yeah. What would you say it was?
They're like in a crack den, but they've got in a bit of trouble, and they know they have to move on quickly because they're basically headline news. The police are looking for them. I think was it unintentional that they killed as many people in their escape as they thought, because now everyone is definitely after them.
Yeah, it seems like they've definitely got to move on, haven't they? Yeah. So when they were the news were kind of describing all these people as they were being introduced to us in the crack den / whatever. And when they described Fred Weasel Podowski, they described him as a child molester. They said like peeping. They said a really weird word like peeping Tomer.
Yeah.
Like, what do they say?
Yeah, it's
murderer.
Like a combination of all these crimes, and they burst that little kiddie's balloon as they go past.
Oh yeah, well he was holding it. Yeah, they burst a little kiddie's balloon. But I like it with this guy. They listed as things like child molester, peeping Tom, and also he's done a few murders as well. Hang on a minute,
you burying the lead a bit there. But yeah, they're all, they're put across as pretty serious criminals, and then they in a conversation with Sadie, where she's like, "Is I ain't putting out no more until you get some more women around here," and they send out Junior to basically lure
Yeah. So she
these
says
people
that
in.
they want equal representation in their little gang of psychopaths. And yeah, so that's when he goes out and basically, what does he do? Does he like overhear them saying they want to get some
I
drugs?
think they've decided they want some because they've had a lovely time having an ice cream and they've tried all the flavors. There's a lot of ice cream flavors at that place. And he goes, "Oh, I
She
don't
was
want
so
it.
she was so fussy. One of them, she was like, "What's that? Mint chocolate chip? Oh no,
Not having that one." It is a birthday, I
lemon
guess.
sherbet." And she went, "Oh no, I can't try that." But what'd she go for in the end? Vanilla.
I don't remember what she goes for in the end. I know she just doesn't want mint. She goes, "Oh, give us a taste of yours." She goes, "No, no good."
Disgusting. It tastes like brushing my teeth.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, all those flavors of ice cream are the only Colombian I need. Colombian vanilla, delicious, yum.
Colombian vanilla. I really want some Colombian marijuana. I may just be, sounding like an absolute idiot by saying, but if somebody said to me, I got some high rated Colombian in my hotel room, I'd think they meant cocaine. Maybe that's just
Lovely,
me as
lovely, lovely cup of coffee, lovely black roast. Oh, yum.
maybe that's just me. I'm not street smart enough, I'll be like, what's that? Oh yeah, what have you got? Like what is it ground already? Is it ground? Yeah, of course it's ground already.
Have you got any
Oh yeah,
filters? No, no, absolutely not. Straight in the cup.
straight in the cup. Jesus.
How about water? Laughing.
What kind of milk do you want with it? All of it.
Oh, I've got back at the crack den. I mean, coffee shop. I've got oat milk,
Crack
almond milk, pea milk,
Crack
whatever you want.
Den. Crack Den is a very silly nickname we've got for the coffee shop because
Because we
clientele.
because we because we crack the beans ever so hard.
Yeah, crack the beans.
Crack the beans to get the
Um,
coffee.
so
So
they go,
as soon as they get there, it's like almost immediately a trap.
oh yeah, because he just turns and locks the door, and they go, oh shit, and then all the people who were nice to
Actually,
them 2 seconds ago stand up like brandish knives and just say, oh yeah,
he literally
now we gotcha. Surround the girls in creepy manner, basically insinuating that they're gonna do whatever the hell they want with them, essentially,
yeah,
and it's not
and it,
pleasant.
and it gets sexual incredibly quickly. Yeah, and they're threatening one to coerce the actions of another, and
Mm.
it's Mary's friend that gets probably their attention primarily in the first case, right? Um,
Yeah. And
and
there
then
is a little bit of dodgy acting from Sandra Peabody as Mary Collingwood, especially when it like shows her reaction to some of the horrors that she's seeing. It's very like a GCSE drama where she's just like, oh, oh no, I don't know where to look. It's
yeah,
pretty bad. But
and
yeah, if your takeaway from that scene is that, like it was with me, maybe I'm not getting the point, but still, it was pretty
well, we,
gruesome.
we cut reasonably. It's like it's minor compared to the things that we endure later on. It
Hmm.
it cuts away, and again, this is where I get kind of there's a whole side story that goes along with this, and it feels very similar to there's like the Roger Moore era James Bond, where there's like a
Yeah,
put upon sheriff that's like always being thrown out by James Bond's antics. We have at this point, Mary is late coming home, and the parents phone the police, and they give the standard, "Oh, you have not been missing for that long, as of
yeah,
as
because
as of as of yet."
they were preparing a surprise birthday party for her as well,
Yes,
weren't they?
they were throwing
And
about
obviously they
to
say
come home.
it's not like her to do this sort of thing. And I can't remember if it was this, was it this one or was it the remake where they kind of go like, "Oh, this is a girl's way of saying I'm grown up now," and
Yeah,
we've
I think
kind
it,
of got to let her.
it kind of covers into it in both ones. They are planning a surprise birthday party for her in this one. It shows that they're
Yeah.
quite a nice family all together. They do phone the police after a certain couple of visits,
So
and
the main difference with the remake to do with the gang is that he's being transported somewhere by police and then they crash into the car like the dad there's like a dad character. So it's like a dad, a son, a brother, and like a girlfriend, isn't it?
yeah,
Um which is slightly different relationships in terms of the way the gang is in this one. Aaron Paul is one of them.
He's like the
Aaron.
uncle. He's like the main baddie's brother in the.
Yeah, that's right. And the other guy is what's his flavor? Garrett Dillahunt, who's killed by a tiger in Army of the Dead and
Not eaten by a
Burning
tiger
Bright.
in this one, which is a shame.
It is a shame. It could have been the ultimate trilogy. But yeah, so that's the difference. Is that they're like that, and the reason that they end up kidnapping the girls is not because they've gone out to find them. They just the younger guy brings them back to the motel to smoke some weed, and they just come back and find them, and then start having their fun in that way.
So yeah, on back in the main one, so they phone the police at this point, and then this is the other part that really throws me for a loop. And then it goes to like this almost shambolic comedic sense where they're sneaking them out of the house the next day. These two
I wasn't
tied
even
up.
sure if they were alive or dead in this moment.
Yeah, yeah, and they're like coming down the fire escape, and there's like some plinky plonk.
Hey, the coast is clear.
Yeah, and it's like yeah, it's like Frank Spencer music.
Yeah, it was exactly like that. And you mean you shouldn't laugh, but it was ridiculous to the point where you're just like, wait a minute. Like, just imagine if the soundtrack was completely different, just completely different. It would have such a different sort of take. But oh my god, they're bringing these girls bound and gagged into the car in broad daylight. You know.
Yeah, I think it's a lot that you see these cuts that people do on the socials these days, where it's like reimagine this film as a romantic comedy or things like that. It's got that like it's such a disconnect with what the content of the film is
Yeah.
here.
This summer, the ragtag group of criminals bite off more than they can chew.
Baby's Day Out. Yeah, so they sneak them out of the house and they go on the road, and then we kind of get a series. We cut back and forth a little bit where the sheriff is getting put upon by the parents to try and take it more seriously and actually go looking for them, while essentially we have our two main like victims in the boot of a car while the other guys drive along. The one couple, sort of our old Krug, he is having sex with his girlfriend, just like constantly in the back
I
of the
didn't even know
car.
they were having sex. So maybe this is just. I want to say it's my innocent mind, but it's not that innocent to be fair. But I was like, for ages, I was like, she's having fun. She's just bouncing up and down on his lap. It was only after a while that I realized, oh, hang on a minute,
But
are they actually having sex?
but
Like,
they're
what?
literally sitting next to the weasel, chatting to him about you caught up on Bake Off. So
And
yeah,
he is a convicted child molester, peeping tom, and murderer.
yeah, and they're
I
just
mean,
they're just chatting in the back while they drive along. I take it based on that, is Junior the one that's set to driving?
yeah, and he's having an absolute. He's all. Is it? He's nearly getting to the point of horrible withdrawal, isn't he? Like he is
Yeah,
going to get there fully, but like, well, can you drive? I will, but my belly's aching. Like, fuck.
yeah.
Just do it.
So that they have this drive, and there's a little bit where Krug and Sadie having sex, and he says something to him that like puts him off. He's like, I should bloody kill you.
Yeah, I was in the mood until you said something about Bake Off, and you told me that was your favorite contestant, and I
Well,
disagreed entirely.
I don't know actually whether it put him off or tipped him over the edge. We know it's never made expressly clear to us. If he's like, oh, I tell you what, it's bread week next week. He's like, oh,
Oh, Brad Week. Ah.
should bloody kill you. You know, the talk of a loaf always fires me up.
But yeah, and they kind of just drive to. No, wait, the car breaks down first, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah, the car breaks down. Is it coincidental? Because in the remake again, they kind of address this properly in script, whereby Mary gives the advice, "Oh, go this way. This is the way you want to go," and
Yeah.
they kind of drive them towards her home. But is it just coincidental because they're in the boot? They can't give them any
It's
directions, right?
completely coincidental, which is kind of crazy. Like it really is crazy, isn't it? But yeah, essentially they just end up there accidentally. There's no real rhyme or reason for why they should end up there. they just do, and that is, it's odd, and it is a bit strange and sort of off-putting in terms of like the way the film goes, especially like you know what I mean. I kept expecting like someone would go, "Where is it then?" Oh, it's just Last House on the Left.
Yeah.
That's the title of the
Or
film.
where are we going to hide out? Let's look for somewhere really quiet. I know. Go down this quiet street, and we'll take the last house
That's this.
on the left.
Looks at the screen, but
God,
there's none of that. There's none of that.
they don't do that. So they coincidentally break down quite nearby, and then we have like quite an extended and maybe the most brutal part of the scene where basically things escalate. There is another quite a visceral rape scene, and we've seen. And this is where we see that filmmaking, which is that I spoke about earlier. Where it feels like the camera is very much amongst these things that are happening, and there's
Yeah.
threats between people. They force Mary's friend to wet herself in front of them. Like it's a really degrading and horrible scene to watch.
Yeah. And it feels that they're literally just doing it for kicks. It's like there's no like, obviously I know there is a extended sort of like rape scene, but all of this stuff that comes before it doesn't seem to be done as for sexual gratification. It's kind of just to humiliate them both.
Yeah.
And then they force them to sort of strip off and kiss and perform other sexual acts in front of each other. But I can't remember how she chooses to do this, but Phyllis, right at a certain moment, distracts the
She
kidnappers
basically says,
somehow.
I'm gonna run for it. Then
Yeah.
I'm gonna run for it. You use this moment to escape, and you go and get us help. And she does. They leave Junior behind to watch Mary, and and Phyllis makes a run for it, and quite successfully evades them for a while.
I feel like you've just be able to get away from these. First of all, you've got a bloke in a suit and what looks like some kind of Cuban heel struggling to like balance on some rocks at some point. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy who, I don't know, I feel like you could evade him fairly easily. And even Sadie to a degree. They seem really far away at some point, but then they manage to catch up to her, sorry. And all of this time, Mary is basically trying to convince Junior to let her go by saying, "I
Gives
want to
him a
be your
new
friend."
gives him a new name, gives him her necklace. Yeah, that plot point. He goes, I'll
I'll
tell you
tell you
what.
what convinced me in any scenario to do something you want. Just give me a new name. Call me something else. What should I call you? I'll call you Willow. Should have called him Mr. Toad. Should have called him Kermit.
Yeah.
Kermit.
Yeah,
You'd have loved that.
yeah. Cause I tell you what, your name's Willow now, and I'm gonna give you this necklace because we
Willow.
are friends.
Wait, Willow. What like what's his
A,
name?
a little magic man.
Oh, why have I forgotten his name?
The actor, Warwick Davis.
Warwick Davis. What did I forget his name? I feel like I mention him at least every day of my life, so I don't know how I've forgotten his name. Just because he's a great guy and he's always on that TV show Tenable. That's the main reason.
Yeah.
Uh,
But unfortunately, it's untenable for Junior to help her escape, and he kind of cops it in the end. He does let her leave the place where they're going to, but Phyllis gets captured. She is stabbed, and in another scene, and ultimately murdered brutally by the killers.
well,
Um,
I'm pretty so I'm pretty sure she gets stabbed. That's when she crawls and like collapses by a tree. That's like the iconic sort of poster scene that we get,
yeah,
and then again gets stabbed to death. And yeah, because that Krug turns up with a bloody machete. That's the main reason that she can't get away. And then they essentially do the same to Mary.
yeah. They first terrify her with her friend's removed arm.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh, see, that was kind of unexpectedly brutal because I think up until this point there was no like real moments. Even the stabbings kind of felt a bit like off screen. Well, there was a bit where someone was getting stabbed and it was a really weird sound effect. Doing, doing, doing. It was a bit like that.
was that like were they hitting strings on the music? It was like a musical sting they were doing there.
Yeah, I think it was a musical sting. Yeah, I think it was. It was very strange. It kind of again really took me out of that moment where
And they're kind of completely out of control now. They brutally assault Mary as well. Again, it's all very like I say, in terms of the skill of the filmmaking behind it,
Yeah.
like incredibly well done. You know, look at the time that this film was made, and this was one of the things that I was surprised that they didn't soften with the with the more modern remake. Like
Yeah.
it feels more like a film in the modern remake, but not entirely so. It still does have those raw and rough edges to it, but
Mhm.
they, for all the things that they do dial back on in the remake, you know, spoilers for the end, I guess. Mary survives in the remake. She's there
Mm.
and is taken to
But there is a moment,
authorities
obviously,
hospital.
where you feel like the same thing happens. Where obviously with Mary, they carve their name into Krug carves his name into her chest. Then she like says a prayer, walks into the lake,
Yeah, that's
and
kind
then
of, we get like almost, it's almost a somber moment where they kind of leave
mm,
her to it as well. They allow her to say a prayer over her dead friend after they've done some terrible things to her. And all of them, there's almost a sadness even in the villains. Like, you know, there's like an acceptance of what's about to happen, and they shoot her in the lake, right?
yeah, so they shoot her just like in the head, and she just dies in the lake there. And in the remake, she escapes, and you think maybe this is different. She's swimming away. But when they shoot, and then obviously the character is not Krug. The character's name is
Aaron
yeah.
Paul.
The character's name is Krug. Sorry, I didn't realize that. Garrett Dillahunt's character is Krug. He like misses a few times. You think, oh, she's gonna get away, but no, she gets shot. However, she does survive, which is different. Whereas Mary in the original does just die, and that's where it's so bleak and like devoid of hope is the fact that she just dies, just like gives up. Well, not gives up. Obviously,
Like
she's
is
it's against her
murdered,
will.
yeah.
She is murdered, and then you kind of think, well, where can this film go now? These two main characters have been killed. But the fact is that they parked up directly outside of Mary's house. When the police come out as well, they see the car and they kind of go, "What do you reckon's going on there?" Probably nothing. And they go back to the station. And later on, they real when they get someone gets called in about the gang that's escaped from prison. They were driving a Cadillac. It was a Cadillac, like a Cadillac convertible, green.
They
And then
spot they hear about
they
the car and think,
realize
oh no. And then
but they literally look at each other like this. Oh no! Why are you on?
yeah, it's almost comedic that we have it, because then they then lose access to their car. Does it break down, or do they lose,
This
what
whole
happens to their
subplot with the
car?
police is so strange. This is Some Mothers Do Album with what's his name? Michael Crawford. Is that his name?
Yeah, but
Michael
the guy looks a
Crawford.
bit like Vic Reeves, the sheriff does.
Yeah, yeah, he does. But this is the thing. So their car breaks down and he goes, "It's because you're out of gas. You big doo-doo head." It's pretty much like that.
And then
And
there's a
that's
lady with a truck full of chickens that it's too heavy. She goes, I ain't giving you a lift. That's 11 crates of chickens I'll have to throw off my car to give you a lift. You ain't worth
this
11 crates of chickens.
this whole subplot was strange, considering really like the police and the events of the police don't mean anything to the finale of the film.
Yeah, they do not turn up until literally the dying embers of the movie
Yeah,
to witness what has happened.
weird.
So it's so strange to have these pseudo comedic beats in what is otherwise such a brutal film. But
Hmm.
Krug and the gang basically um
Krug and the gang.
turn up at
Like,
Mary's parents' house, who we saw earlier on. Um,
yeah, but this is the thing. They don't know. Obviously, the parents don't know, but the gang don't know at this moment that they're at Mary's house because, in terms of what are the chances, it's pretty much zero. But still, it happens anyway. So they change out their bloody clothes. They have a little wash in the river, little creek wash, which is lovely. No matter what happens to that, you're clean as can be.
clean as a whistle,
Um,
sharp as a thistle, these guys, and they are.
they go to the house and they masquerade as traveling salesmen whose car is broken down. Your car's been broken down outside my house for the last 8 hours. Yeah, I know it's bad, isn't it? We're waiting for the AA.
I was trying to mend it at first, then I realised I wasn't a mechanic. So there's that.
Doesn't one of them say as well? Like one of them's looking at the car, and then Krug says, "I could have fixed. I used to be able to fix a car in 2 minutes flat. Well, no matter what the problem was, like, well, fix it then."
Yeah, I used to be able to do that. Can't anymore.
Billy
Modern
Big
cars.
Bollocks. He's like, I've been in prison, so modern cars these days, completely don't know what's going on. So yeah, they masquerade as traveling salesmen, but they say they're in insurance
Insurance for
slash
plumbers.
insurance for plumbers, right? And it's a family business. Okay. But it seems like Mr. and Mrs. Collingwood are the most. I mean, this is the thing. You could leave your door open back in the 60s slash early 70s. You could
Yeah.
leave your door unlocked. Don't matter. No need for burglar alarms. No need for
No Krugs would,
CCTV.
no Krugs would turn up.
No. If you turn out, you just go, yeah, it's fine. You could stay. We got a room. How many of there are there? 4. That's
Well,
right.
you
We got a
can
double bed.
use the daughter's room because she is away, I guess.
Yeah.
That's sorry, that's the remake where you go, oh, you could use her room, I suppose.
So in the remake, it's more like they've got like
Like a
an
pool
outhouse,
house.
not an outhouse. That's a toilet. I mean, like a co-
Like a little granny flat, a little annex.
little granny flat, the annex from Night of the Creeps. That's where yeah. So they've essentially got that, and it doesn't take long for them to kind of. I think they have some dinner, have a chat. The dad is
Junior
very
is
open.
yeah, he's a doctor and he's quite talkative. They're keen to help them, and it's like, oh
Yeah,
well, tell you what, when my daughter gets back with the car, we'll give you a lift in.
yeah. And in the remake, it's mostly the same, except they kind of say that they've been attacked, and that is when Aaron Paul's character's got like a broken nose, which the doctor is kind of fixing up in a pretty brutal and painful way. We watched the whole
Gruesomely
process,
resetting his nose, right?
gruesomely resetting his nose. Yeah, and essentially the same thing happens. They got offered to stay there, and it's only Junior, who in the remake is called Justin, who realizes that they're at Mary's house because he sees the picture of her on the fridge.
Yeah.
And in the original, they just see the photo in her bedroom,
The
possibly.
photo in the bedroom and they comment on
Yeah,
it. Um,
yeah.
but in both cases, it's the necklace that will eventually give them away, right?
Yeah, it's the necklace that does it. So Junior in the original is having a heroin withdrawal wretch in the bathroom. Estelle hears, gets up, goes and checks on him. Are you okay? You sound like shit. Are you all right? And then notices that he's got the necklace on. In the remake, the necklace just gets sort of like left on the kitchen side.
Yeah, he kind of
Mary,
puts it down.
Mary lives and obviously comes back to the house to try and imagine that just been tortured and pretty much murdered. So she's been shot, but it went in her back, didn't it? It's like
Yeah,
because I thought from that I thought it hit her in the head, but I think just because she was like lying flat, you couldn't really see
yeah.
where it
I mean,
went.
this is another thing where the remake does a little work into avoiding a contrivance. I think the necklace, which is like the peace symbol from the original, you might think, so, oh, I gave my daughter one just like that today, but it's not an uncommon,
Yeah,
it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility. Just think, oh, my daughter's got one like that.
yeah.
Um, whereas in the remake, it's do we ever get express clarification as to what happened to the brother? Had he died?
To who, sir?
To the
The
brother, the
Yeah,
departed
I'm not
brother, like,
sure.
and he has like but basically it's a very specific necklace, which is from the brother
Mm,
who we only see pictures of, saying, with some kind of message. So it is a very personal family item that it wouldn't be
yeah,
possible to be another version of.
no.
Whereas in this one, it's just the familiarity of the symbol, and that kind of helps them put it together. And then everyone turns in for the night. I think we're left fairly tense as to whether something unpleasant is going to happen, and the criminals are planning to attack, rob, do whatever to the parents at some point anyway, because they are violent, unstable criminals.
Yeah,
Um, but they go out and they find their daughter's body.
yeah. So she's obviously this was weird. I was kind of a bit confused by this bit because like I don't know. It kind of felt like a bit nuts. Just like, oh, she might be out there somewhere dead, and they just go running around in their knitwear and turtleneck. This is we are talking about the original, right?
The original, like Mr. and
Yeah,
Mrs. Wogan go out and they find
Mr. and Mrs. Wogan.
they
Yeah,
go out and they find their daughter. And they have like, the obviously the anguish of these parents, and the mother is saying, oh,
mm,
is there anything you can do for her? And the dad, as we've established in both versions, is a doctor, says like, no, she's dead. There's nothing I
mm.
can do.
What's kind of weird is that like these are quite well-to-do sort of. rich to a degree, folk. I don't know. I didn't know if I fully believed that they were capable of I don't know, just straight up murdering the
I
people who
think
had killed their daughter. But are we supposed to believe that like that's what grief does? Like,
I
well,
think I
not
think
even
this
grief. It's
is
like grief and anger, isn't it?
this is the skill of the filmmaking. Like, because I think without this part, it could be without this change of pace and without this flipping of what happens. Certainly, my first I'd seen the remake before. I'd never seen the original. But I think
Yeah,
watching it at first, you could think if it didn't carry on, if it didn't make a change, it could be very easily argue that it's a film made in incredibly bad taste, is incredibly unpleasant to watch in a lot of places.
yeah,
It's very nice how you, as an audience member, not very nice, nothing nice about it, but the levels of violence that we see across the board are fairly consistent from both sides. There isn't a sexual angle from the revenge of the parents, but you're seeing similar levels of violence being portrayed for very different
yeah.
reasons.
There's
And
not a
how you
sexual anger
get
from the parents, but there's a suggestion of something that could be sexual
yeah, but there's
at some point.
when we see it's kind of using their own angles against them. These, but you see similar levels of violence, and the people who've been portraying this violence in the early half of the movie, by the end, do become victims of it, victims of violence that will ultimately kill all of them.
Yeah,
Um, and it makes for an interesting thing to think about as an audience member, where you are going from being appalled by the people that are acting out these violent acts to actually seeing them get their comeuppance, right? And
yeah,
seeing them fall victim to the
yeah.
anger and the upset of these parents
So,
as they go
yeah.
through it.
So in the remake, Mary survives. She manages to get back to her house, crawling out of the lake, essentially, near death. And her parents find her, and obviously because her dad's a doctor, he manages to first administer CPR so that she coughs up some of the water in her lungs, and also get the bullet out of her back, and then drain some of the fluid out of her lungs as
I
well.
think
Like
they,
it's all
they
pretty.
basically stop the bleeding and drain. So I'm not sure he fishes for a bullet, because he says even I think fishing for a
Okay. Yeah, he
chuffing
does say
bullet.
that. You're right. It's really
Um,
it's because he got a knife after that. I thought maybe he was doing that,
he's
but
basically able to stabilize her so she's not at imminent risk of death, and then they can, because the car is nowhere to be found, because again the daughter has
yeah.
taken the car. They his
Where's the
plan is that
car?
he will
Where's the car?
they're going to take her by boat, right?
Yeah, so they're gonna take it by boat, and one of the things is they can't find the boat keys as well. That's another thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, in the remake, I felt like they were far more capable of exacting this revenge. I don't know why. Like, just I don't know something about them. Even though sure they're a bit well to do and they're rich as well, but I don't know. I kind of felt that anger immediately, which kind of made me feel like okay, they understand what needs to be done.
I feel like with the remake, their positioning and their actions are partially driven by the fact their daughter is still alive, and it's a desperate attempt for survival here. Whereas I feel like the
Yeah.
plan in the original is I'm going to kill these guys.
Okay, but why? Why? What was with the haphazard Home Alone style trap sequences that they decided to do in the original, which proved to just mildly inconvenience whoever comes across these traps for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I,
What-
I feel I
what-
feel like this is something that Wes Craven clearly wanted to do, because he would go on to do it in a more deadly way when Nancy sets the traps for Freddy in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah,
I feel like this is something that I don't know. Maybe Wes Craven was a big like, he's the original Kevin McAllister. Maybe Wes Craven used to, we hear the stories of
yeah,
a partial inspiration for Freddy Krueger being like a homeless man who prowled around Wes Craven's childhood house that scared him and his
yeah.
brother
Okay.
when they were a kid. Maybe this is also leaning into some of his actions when it maybe used to build like
Oh yeah,
traps and things like that, because we see the criminals are by and large asleep, and they basically put a plan into action. So the dad is putting tripwires down and squirting shaving foam on the floor and electrocuting a carpet and
the
doing all
shaving foam. He didn't even fall over the guy when he ran across it. He kind of
slip.
just like slipped for a second. Then it was like, yeah. Then it was
Then it
what
was then it was over the tripwire.
a tripwire. Yeah.
Meanwhile, the The mom, she goes out and goes with a completely different angle to kick it all off. So the our main guy, the Weasel, he's coming out there with his full suit on. He hasn't got any jammies. He's just out in his full suit going, yeah. He's got his stogie on again, and he's going, oh, I actually was just up late. What's going on? And the mom thinks, right, I think their daughter's body is on the sofa and they can't let him see it. So she plays a hand basically to distract him because, oh, I'll tell you what, my husband is scared of having sex with me, which is a shame. Is, oh, I'll tell you what, I'd be so keen on it that I would have sex with you with my hands tied behind my back. And she goes,
Oh yeah.
oh yeah,
I'm laughing at it. It's really ridiculous.
We could do that if you like. He's a real boaster. He's got
Imagine
in between his energy. He's like, I come
yes.
5 or 6 times, my hands tied behind my back.
I could come 5 or 6 times. My hands would be tied behind my back. You could tie my legs together if you want. You could blindfold me. You can hand me upside down through the ceiling. I will still give you the night of your life. That's basically his attitude.
And she tempts him outside while the dad is setting the traps. She goes, oh, we might come back in and hear us if we go to the bedroom. Come outside, use your tie. It's essential that character wore a suit all the time, so he would have a tie on.
Yeah, that was the only reason, exactly. It does seem like so she starts performing fellatio upon him, but it seems like
they're properly
she does
dishing out a gobby to this bad
she's dishing out a gobby to this bad bloke. But it seems like for at least 5 or 6 seconds she's committing to making it believable.
I guess she needs to, from a scientific point of view, Ben, what she needs to do is get the blood flow absolutely pumping there to make sure that he definitely bleeds out when she bites his dick off.
She doesn't just bite his dick; she like bites his dick and then like a dog, like sort of like
be ever so gristly, Ben. You're really going to need to tear that sinew.
Incredibly gristly, it seems.
And she, once he's got his hands tied behind his back, she gets a little bit. Oh, got it in the zip on accidentally on purpose. And she goes, "Oh, the poor little fella." And he goes, "Not little, just."
Oh yeah, she does say that. She goes, "The poor little baby, tiny, pathetic little gets bigger." Honestly, you wait. Tie my hands behind my back.
You've just scared him with that zip bit. All right, it'll come back to normal. But yeah, this is how. And I told you, I looked at the timing. This is less than 20 minutes left of the film at this point. Do we see anything else happen to the Weasel, or does get his dick bit off?
He just collapses. He just collapses and leaves him to bleed him to death. It says here it bites off his penis and swallows it. Like what? Yeah. That's incredible, unnecessary first of all, but also an incredible feat to do that. But never know. So yeah, and in the house is where John, like, basically he sets all these silly traps, even though he's got a shotgun. I feel like just walk up to them in bed and blast them away, but no. How does he kill Sadie? Oh no, wait, sorry, Sadie doesn't die yet. So basically Krug runs into the shaving foam initially, falls over, incapacitated for 2 seconds, trips over the tripwire, incapacitated for 3 seconds, then
the traps have run out of plan, so he just does a fist fight with him and he punches him twice. He goes, "Oh, go and give you a free one,
Yeah.
And then
glass jewel.
And then when he picks up the poker, he goes, "Actually, I'm not going to give you a free one on that. I'm going to fight you." And then he fights him. Junior comes and interrupts the fight. Because Krug, had enough of you. I'm going to bloody shoot you. But he tells him off enough till he shoots himself. So Junior dies here.
It's pretty harsh, isn't it? It's just like,
go on, shoot yourself in the head instead.
Shoot yourself in the head, you bastard. And that's when John goes downstairs and comes back upstairs with a chainsaw.
With Terry Wogan's chainsaw.
To be fair, but he's not particularly terrifying with his chainsaw. He's a bit like, and also Krug keeps getting wooden furniture and holding it up, which he commits to cutting through every time.
Of all the losses that Dr. Wogan has had in this film, all of his furniture is also destroyed because Krug blocks with every single piece he can find.
You go, I could just not cut through it. I could just cut your legs, go underneath and around, walk around and cut you in the head.
I'm going to chop through all of these. So yeah, basically Junior's interference gives, because for a while Terry Wogan has been defeated, but it allows him to recover and go and get the chainsaw from downstairs.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening. Those two are dueling with that. Sadie goes outside and basically gets into a fight with Cynthia. Sorry, Estelle. Cynthia is the actor's name.
So yeah.
So Cynthia, sorry, Estelle, get a grip. So Estelle fights with Sadie, and they roll, and she stabs her, kicks her into the pool, and then as she's trying to get back
Slits
out,
her
she
throat,
slashes her
doesn't she?
throat.
Yeah.
At this point, the
Yeah.
police now. This is literally
Yep.
this. There are 2 minutes left of this movie, and the police now arrive.
Can we just talk about the electrocution booby trap thing? Because he soaked the a mat, like a rug, in water, and then
put a wire against it.
And then he actually he tried to open the door and he got electrocuted, and fell over backwards. And again, how long did that incapacitate him for? Yeah, exactly. More Home Alone. How long did that incapacitate him for?
Seconds.
It's just unnecessary. It's not, at least like in Home Alone, they're incapacitated so Kevin can run away from that particular place to the next place. It feels
like in this one, it would be a bit like, touch the thing and the fuse is good, and then you straight in. Yeah.
For however long, so it took him, I reckon, about half an hour to set up all those traps, and in total, it incapacitated Krug for probably 9 seconds.
Yeah, I feel like, again, had this been, they didn't necessarily. I think Wes Craven would probably love to have killed several of the baddies with these things. They just didn't have a big enough gang to do it. So why you had to use this idea again in Nightmare on Elm Street, where you have a semi-indestructible baddie like in Freddy Krueger, and then you can have the light bulbs explode, and genuinely a trap whereby when you open the door, a sledgehammer will swing down and smack you in the chest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he wanted to pull off this idea again.
Yeah.
But yeah, and throughout this, the outcome is slightly different in the remake, in which case we see the couple basically double team the brother I mean,
this is it is more brutal, isn't it? So obviously the mother does try to kind of seduce him in a way, do you want to have a drink of wine with me? Yeah. But then he walks in and sees he sees Mary on, she's obviously alive, and he sees that she's alive. He's like, what the fuck? But yeah, they double team him. They
smash his face in with a hammer.
Smash his face in, smash a bottle across his head. Then they force his hand into the waste disposal thing.
Drown him slightly in the sink. But
drown him a little bit in the sink, yeah.
But mostly just hammer him to death.
The nose that they fixed, fuck that back up. I'll have that back.
Yeah.
But it's kind of realistic, like the way his hand looked. I thought he was going to pull out a stump, but it just looked proper mangled. And they a hammer in the head, and then they go to where Krug and Sadie are asleep. This is the remake, obviously, and that's when Justin gives them the gun.
Justin gives them the gun. They shoot Sadie in the neck, and she is bleeding out. And then they finish, and then they finish her off in the bathroom. They basically throw her against the wall and shoot her in the head.
But despite the fact she's been shot in the neck, or in the sort of just wherever in the shoulder, she puts up a good fight against both Justin and the dad. But yeah, she gets shot in the face by the mum, and then it's a final battle in the house with Krug versus the dad, which goes on, and again Justin gets involved and kind of provides a distraction. But they always essentially team up to knock him out, don't they?
They team up and knock him out, and then he is left alive while they go to the hospital. But the dad performs some surgery to effectively paralyze him, so he can't escape. Again, this is when they take their revenge to the extreme. They pause while they can take their daughter to the hospital in this case. But in the original movie, this is basically where we have our ending, where Krug is chainsawed by the father, Terry Wogan.
The police witness it. They walk in just at the moment that Terry Wogan chainsaws someone to death.
They walk in and go, "Oh, don't bother." And he goes, "I ain't stopping now. I've come this far."
Yeah, look at my furniture.
And he saws them up, and then the deputy just comes and takes the chainsaw off them, and the film then goes into a bizarre whiplash with some lovely cheery banjo music, which I think listening back might have been made specifically for the film because it describes some of the actions in the film.
Oh, does it? I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
got chainsawed. He chainsawed all his furniture to death.
it's that one.
Terry
Whereas
Wogan. Sorry.
in the remake, we see them going with across the water in the speedboat to take their daughter to hospital, and then we appear in a later scene, um, where they've got his head in the faulty micro Chekhov's faulty microwave that we saw earlier in
Chekhov's
the
faulty
film.
microwave, yeah, which works even as the doors open. Uh,
What the fault
and
is, safely
that's what the
catches
fault
off.
is. But yeah, they put his head in the microwave, and to be fair, explodes fairly quickly. His head. He's only been on for 30 seconds.
We
Even
don't
if
know
it's
what
on,
we don't know what power that might. Maybe it's a 12,000 watt.
but yeah, it explodes his head. Revenge done. He was paralyzed from the neck down, so he couldn't escape. Yeah, and that's the end of.
Yeah, there's some brutal moments in this film. We skipped over some of the most brutal bits. There's even a bit where the weasel has a nightmare about before the family actually do anything about them chiseling his teeth out.
Oh yeah, and they're like, I thought I didn't think that was a. I didn't
Yeah,
think
I
that
thought
was
I
a
thought they'd
dream. I
got
was
him. I thought they'd got him.
They gone, right, that's it, you weasel. We've put our doctor's gear on and now we're gonna mug you off. So the end of the original is kind of like it just ends on like a horrible note, really, which is like, sure, we've exacted revenge, but our daughter's still dead. And now we're probably gonna be prosecuted as well. Or maybe self-defense, who knows? But pretty shit. And then the remake ends on a not a good note, but a slightly more hopeful note, which is that Mary's alive. She's gonna be all right. The revenge has been exacted.
And the police haven't
So
really been involved, so they could just say, "Oh, those guys were mad. He microwaved his own head. Actually, insisted upon it."
he insisted upon it. He loved it. He loved it. Enjoyed it.
Um,
Yeah. So that's that for both of those.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, feels strange to make light of it, but you got any name game for us, Ben?
I mean, it does feel strange to make light of it, but we will only make light of the title of this
Title.
movie
That's right.
by diving into a bit of name game. Have you got some?
I got a couple for you, Ben.
Okay.
Here's one. A a
Do you need?
speedy a speedy rodent. Um, a speedy rodent is able to save himself from a bunch of escaped convicts by running across the horizon of a bum.
What is it? Horizon of a bum. A
Yeah,
speedy rodent. A mouse. The fast mouse
yeah,
on the. Is it a cleft?
yeah. The fast mouse on the cleft. Very good.
Six, I was going to do cleft, but I can only think of cleft palate, and I thought don't want to make light of anyone's physical ailments in terms of for a name based, a rhyming based horror
Absolutely,
quiz game.
never. I wouldn't in a million years.
Okay, I got one.
Go on then.
So, what is it? Um, a gang unknowingly find refuge at a vacation home belonging to the parents of one of the victims. But it's not in America. This one. It's not set in America. It's set in Germany.
Okay. Das House spelled
Only
spelled
one word.
Haus.
Only one word, and it is Haus. Last house on the left, spelled Haus.
Ah, I was gonna say, do I remember the word for left in German? No, I
No,
don't.
I know, poor effort from me, but I couldn't help it.
So Tony Robinson manages to escape from
Uh,
from a bunch of deranged
I'm
escaped
laughing.
serial killers
Yeah.
by excavating the ruins of a property from days of yore.
What's that show called? Is it
It's
based
not
on
the
the
name of
show
the
he
show.
does?
It's just about the era of time, I guess, that he's found a house on the left hand side.
Uh, Last. Is it last?
No, it's not last. That's the only one that's changed. So Tony Robinson,
Past house on the
yes,
left.
past house on the left.
Yes. Got it. Okay, I got one for you.
Got him.
Um, Creepy gang of psychopaths. They walk into uh a museum, and this museum is based on this. This museum has got loads of exhibitions based on famous people from a certain city in the UK.
Okay.
And some of these things has got the Beatles, we've got Cilla Black, there's Wayne Rooney, there's Mel C from the Spice Girls, and then they go, I prefer the exhibition based on the last one of these people on the left.
Hang on. So it's a UK based one.
If I just say the UK based city, you're going to know it. However, I've given you the names of famous people from the city: the Beatles, Cilla Black, Wayne Rooney, Melanie C from Spice Girls.
I'm stuck, but Liverpool doesn't sound anything like last.
No, it doesn't. But if you're from Liverpool and you're the last what on the left?
Oh, the last scouse on the left. Oh, very good. Very good. I would have been on that for a while.
I wanted to say Liverpool. I felt like it'd be too easy. Yeah.
Um, so let me tell you then about a film that is about the
It's
a tall wooden structure on a ship retires from its nautical life and buys a house.
Mast House on the left.
That's the house on the left. Very good.
Fantastic. We've changed different words on this. Okay. A gang of psychopaths decide that their victims this time aren't going to be innocent young women, but they are going to be medium to large game birds with plump bodies and feathered legs, the male being larger and more brightly colored than the female.
So game birds. Ah, last grouse on the left.
Last grouse on the left. Correct.
Yeah. And the final one I have
It's not
a
easy.
an animated rodent voiced by Reggie Yates decides he's going to vote Labour.
Oh, so it's Rasta Mouse on the left.
And Rastamouse on the left. Very good.
Wow, there we go. Okay, so now we've got to rate this film. Again, probably going to be a bit of a difficult one, but I guess if we try and rate both of them as well, did you want to jump in at all?
Go on then. I'm going to go for it. I think typically I tend to vote based on how much I enjoy a movie versus its quality, necessarily in terms of its filmmaking. This is why you'll see very high reviews from me from the likes of the chopping malls and the sleepaway camps of the world. I'm going to try and find a mixed thing in this one because I think in either sense, more so the original. Is this an enjoyable watch? Is it something I would recommend to a lot of people? I think I'd have a hard time recommending it to a general audience because they'd probably think less of me for it because it is a deeply unsettling. It's a deeply unsettling film in several areas. There is a lot of stuff that I think at the time, and even more so maybe with modern sensibilities, it is a film which I think would be very triggering to watch for a lot of people. It's quite a harrowing watch, and it isn't necessarily a fun horror watch. But as I've said several times in today's episode, I think it's incredibly skillfully made because that discomfort that it can cause is it's very well done. So based on that, I think I'm going to give this one a C plus, balancing out how I would normally rate, but recognizing that it is by no means a bad film. It's a good, well-made film. I'm going to go C plus
is that
on that one.
the original? Yeah,
The original. Remake wise, I'm going to I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it consistent. Actually, I'm going to give it C plus for both because it's differently made. Like there are modern sensibilities. There are some changes to it. Actually, no, forget that. I'm going to downgrade ever so slightly to a C because I think it keeps some of the. I think it keeps some of the discomfort, an awful lot of the discomfort, It has some modern filmmaking sensibilities that change it. I was surprised by some of the things they kept out, like they softened the drug use of that character and almost tried to redeem that one, which I think is a little bit of a cop out in some places. And
Yeah.
again, the balance on the daughter surviving, never going to be a problem to see someone survive, but I think it does take away some of the bleak messaging of the film. So I'll rate that one slightly lower at C, but actually it's a very competently made remake. Yeah, not something
Yeah.
I'd necessarily recommend to people, but I think, especially in the original cases, phenomenally well made by a really notable filmmaker that has a really good style about it. So not a
Yeah.
comfortable watch, but still part of a good horror balanced diet, I would say.
Yeah.
How about
I mean,
you?
I think I agree with you mostly. I think that it's difficult to say that like you enjoy a film, or it's difficult to say that you'd recommend it because it is just a difficult sort of watch. But I can kind of see how it's influenced stuff that's come after it. As I said, it reminded me in a way of those Rob Zombie movies where it seemed like
Yeah.
the actions caused by the antagonists were kind of just to get their kicks and nothing else. Like in terms of plot, they're just, being um horrible bastards, which is kind
Yeah.
of what's happening here. And yeah, it's kind of the only thing for me, the music did really kind of take me out of it, and it made it seem really dated. um it is harrowing, but I don't know, I felt like that finale in for me, the finale in the remake like made everything come together nicely, and I felt satisfied by the conclusion,
Mm.
whereas in the original I kind of just felt the conclusion was a bit silly, a bit, some others do have them, a bit fucking weird to
Oh,
go. If you're not aware of that, if you're not a UK listener, it's a very British, like 70s sitcom where the main character is like a bit of a klutz, and kind of gets everything wrong, and he's a bit silly and a bit childlike. And it kind of did remind me of that. It's a bit like the traps were kind of unnecessary, like just go in and blast him. You got a shotgun. So yeah, I think maybe the first two-thirds of that, I'm not saying it's enjoyable, but like it did really make me think I was watching something that was, I could understand the legacy attached to it from someone like Wes Craven as well. Went on to obviously direct Hills Have Eyes, Nightmare on Elm Street, and obviously eventually Scream as well. But yeah, that finale kind of just, yeah, not so much for me. So in a way, I was a bit like, okay, kind of preferring. I would say the original is probably more competently made as a film up until that finale, and I felt like the remake takes that finale and takes it into those torture porn, gruesome gore stages of modern filmmaking that we're more familiar with, and in that way it kind of felt more satisfying. So I think I'm going to go to a flip reverse to you, is I'm going to give the original a C, and I'm going to give the remake a C plus. But yeah, I think having the main character survive at the end of the remake does a lot for me as well, because the original is very bleak, and yeah, there's no hope, and yeah, it's like, why am I even alive? What's the point of living? Whereas the remake, you're like, oh well, she's gonna be living with PTSD for the rest of her life, but
is a
she ain't
lie.
dead. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I think
I'm
that's how I
interested.
go.
I'm glad that we covered it. And obviously, absolutely, we talk about tonal whiplash. Think of the clown japes that we've had in
Yeah, I
last week's
know.
episode, as much as the music would indicate that perhaps you would. But yeah, it was an interesting watch. I'm glad that we've
Yeah,
done it.
we've done it. That's another one off the list. So, okay, thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, become a patron over at patreon.com/horror hangout. Thanks to our current patrons who include John Crinnan, Ben Scaife, Stephen Christopher, Laura Kendrick, Toby Miller, Lane Spencer, Ollie Child, Leslie Carlo, Julia Bilgren, Nick Spill, Troy Bursch, and Pazuzu. Of course, cannot forget Pazuzu.
Thanks, everybody.
Um, thanks, everybody. Thanks to Taj Easton for our theme music. Thanks to Acast for hosting the show. Please consider giving us a rating or review, and head over to the Facebook group Horror Hangout Board of Advisors to interact with us there. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok. Just search Horror Hangout Podcast on any of those platforms. I'm sure you'll find us. Next week, we are, obviously, as we mentioned at the start of the show, we flipped the order of some episodes around. So next week, we're doing Tetsuo the Iron Man with Amber from Horn Blood Fire. So that should be fun. Looking forward to it. Tonal whiplash all over the place, I think. Killer Clowns into Last House on the Left, into Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Yeah, I've never seen Tetsuo the Iron Man. I have
Me neither.
limited understanding of what I'm expecting this coming week. So yeah,
Yeah.
looking forward to it. I'm in
Maybe
for it.
wear like a airplane pillow to protect your neck from all that tonal whiplash.
Yeah, and then Ben and I were talking. We won't reveal just yet. We've got some fun plans to round out the year yet as well.
Oh my god, yeah, I can't believe it's the end of another year on Horror Hangout. So yeah, we've got some plans for some Christmas, New Year specials, as well as a couple of other episodes. So
I
yeah.
mean, we can probably say it's inevitable we'll do some kind of end of the year roundup as well. We better start thinking about our categories.
Yeah, I don't know if we I have to remind myself, don't we usually do that in January? First
Yeah,
episode
like
of
it's
January,
usually the
maybe?
first episode of January, but we'll start thinking about it. I tell you what, guys, give you plenty of notice. Start thinking your categories. If you've got as a category that you want us to list, if you've got some recommendations, we're gonna in the coming weeks. It's gonna come up faster than you think. You're gonna be getting the trees up, and then your old mates Ben and Andy, maybe Luke will be around as well at some point. We'll be asking you the questions. What was your film of the year? And if you don't want to get pretty caught with your pants down, start thinking about it now so you can give us an answer. Quick sticks.
Don't get caught with your pants down. That's the last thing I could offer to you.
Yeah,
Don't get caught with your
please.
pants down.
Yeah, please don't if you could.
But for now, thanks very much for listening, and we will see you next week.
See you next week. Bye for now, everybody, and bye to you, Ben.
Goodbye. Thanks for
Oh,
being a
thanks for
right
being the
horror
right horror
dude. Forgot
dude.
to say
Oh,
that. Don't know why I didn't say that.
synchronized. We got it. Thanks to everyone for being right
Synchronized.
horror dudes. Bye for now.
All the best.